What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into the AFC South Roundtable here, powered by BetUS. And guys, BetUS has a lot of awesome stuff over there for you guys. It is off season, but they're going to have a whole lot of opportunity for you guys to make some bets, whether it be on the NFL draft or even free agency, or even you can venture out into other sports. NBA is still going on, MLB is around the corner, so all that good stuff. We appreciate BetUS for making the AFC South Roundtable possible. So with all that said, it's officially the offseason, guys. I guess it was kind of the offseason for at least three of our teams about a month ago. Ruben's team got knocked out a couple weeks ago, but now the season is over. Super Bowl is done. No more regular season of football until September. I think all of our girlfriends and wives can all rejoice in that fact. But with all that said, we move on, and we're going to talk about how we can potentially get better. But we'll go ahead and bring in all of our suspects. We have Ruben from the 713 Houston Sports YouTube channel. What's up, Ruben?
What's going on, brother? How's it going?
All is good, man. All is good. Next, we'll go ahead and bring in Titans Rossi. What's up, man?
What's going on? How's it?
Handsome gentleman.
And next up, we're bringing a new opponent into the arena, okay? Derek is currently under the weather, so give some big prayers out to him. We have Cody Felger, also from the Bring the Juice podcast. What's going on, Cody?
What's up, guys? I'm ready to jump in, man. First time, so I'm excited.
Yeah, not too much. Luckily, it's not in the regular season, so I don't think really any shit talk's going to go on right now. But if you're joining us in the middle of the year, actually, even for us in the middle of the year, I don't think there was too much shit talk going on, to be honest with you. Not enough, because
not like year one.
No, not like year one. Year one, me and Ruben were going at it, man. That was fun. Yeah. But I'm gonna hold back my punches until the Jaguars are actually good, because I don't know if any of you guys know it. I know Texans fans know it, but I kind of embarrassed myself in 2023. So I'm gonna hold back my punches until we can actually be good again. But with that said, man, shout out to everyone in the chat. Be sure to drop your likes. We have Paul in the building, who's a Colts fan, so he says it's a Cody sighting. So shout out to him. Shout out to Cosmic over here, Jaguars fan. DQ in here. He's a Texans fan, and let's see, Titans going to milk that pick for every ounce of attention. I don't know if that makes him a Titans fan, but I'm sure there's some Titans fans in here. Okay, so we'll just have to see. But with that said, Super Bowl 59 was on Sunday. It was, I thought it was going to be an awesome game. It just flat out wasn't at all. It obviously, I don't have the final score up, but it was a blowout. It was never close. I mean, they got up to what, like a 24-0, 27-0, 30-0 lead or something like that. And then it was just never really a game. The Eagles just completely dominated. So the Chiefs were not able to get their three-peat. The Eagles finally are able to defeat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl to get their second Super Bowl of all time. We'll start with Titans Rossi, man. What were your thoughts about, the Super Bowl?
I mean, I was shocked, to be honest. Like, I thought that, I thought it was going to be a close game. Like, I mean, I really thought the Chiefs were going to win. I mean, there was quite a few factors going into that, the three-peat. And what's crazy is it's never happened. Like, I thought that this had happened before. Like, I thought the Cowboys that did it at one point, but there's been 5 or 6 teams that have won 2 in a row. But for whatever reason, it's just, something's always happened, whether it was during the season or in the playoffs. I mean, there's been teams completely collapse after they won 2 Super Bowls in a row throughout the next season for whatever reason. But yeah, I was shocked, man. I was shocked at how bad Mahomes played. But I mean, on that same token, the guy was just getting killed back there.
Yeah. I mean, that's an absolute fact. And it's crazy because they were getting all this pressure on Mahomes by only rushing 4 players. I mean, I know the Jaguars couldn't dream of doing that, man. Like, the only time we're able to get pressure is if we're sending all these different blitzes, man. So, Cody, what were your thoughts about this game?
It's amazing how much the Eagles were able to rebuild and really just one off season via free agency, via the draft. It was pretty awesome, actually, to see that. But yeah, you're right. I mean, just the absolute domination. I mean, I know Ruben will probably talk about this, but when you actually have a D-line that can get after Mahomes, it makes the games a lot more interesting. That's for sure. So yeah, I thought it was a game where, man, Philadelphia is so dang talented, man. It's insane how much talent they have on that roster. And to be able to do what they did to Mahomes, I mean, that is very rare. Very rare. So, yeah, I expected it to be a good game, but I did not expect Philadelphia to do what they did. I mean, honestly, just to basically blow them out. It was wild.
Yeah. And I don't mean to throw salt on the wound, and I'm sure you've seen it, but the Indianapolis Colts actually helped contribute to the Eagles Super Bowl, man. Like, look at this trade that happened, right? So from the Carson Wentz trade, they were able to basically parlay that into like a trade up, trade back, and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, that trade that the Indianapolis Colts made for Carson Wentz, which I think they got a first and a third round pick from that, right? The Eagles.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that's correct.
So that they parlayed that somehow into Devontae Smith, AJ Brown, Jalen Carter, and Cooper DeJean.
Oh my God,
that is unreal.
That is.
Like,
I mean, man, I tell you, my disdain for Chris Ballard grows on the daily basis. It's bad, man. And the sad thing is, you're free of Trent Baalke. We have Chris Ballard at least for one more year. And I don't know what's going to take, man, but it's almost to the point where I'm like, every decision he makes at this point almost seems like the wrong one. And again, Laiatu Latu's still a young player. He could turn into a good player, but you see Cooper DeJean, you see Quinyon Mitchell, you see Brian Thomas, all these guys doing this. It's horrible, man. It's rough.
Yeah.
So it's just, adding a little bit of salt in the wound, but man, whatever, man. For the past 5 years, I've just come to expect it at this point. I mean, we're all like that, you know.
I have kind of a conspiracy. I think with the Indianapolis Colts, there's like two best case scenarios and there's like a worst case scenario, right? I think the best case scenario is that Steve Steichen and Anthony Richardson absolutely kill it. You know, they go to the playoffs. He reaches his potential and everything's good. I think the second best scenario is that the Colts go like 3-14. They completely bottom out, and that makes them clean house. But I think there's a worst case scenario, and that's like they go like 8-9 or something like that, barely miss the playoffs, and it prevents them from cleaning. Because I think all of them are tied together at this point. Like, I think if they don't have success next year, then all of a sudden Richardson's gone, Steichen's gone, Chris Ballard's gone, and then all of a sudden you have a complete new regime that comes in there. And you have fresh blood, kind of like what the Jaguars have this year. I mean, new head coach, new GM. They have Tony Basellian as EVP. What are your thoughts on that, Cody?
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think they're all tied together. And man, you know how the off season is so much like optimism season for so many people. I can tell you, in my years covering this team and in my years just being a fan, this is probably the least optimistic I've ever felt as a Colts fan. Like, honestly, it's crazy for me to say that, but and I'm not the only one. Like, fans are feeling that way. They're like, we don't believe that anything's going to change. We don't believe that anything's going to get better, right? So I think you're absolutely right. Like, it's all tied together, and fans were noticeably and very much justified in being pissed. I was one of those that Chris Ballard was retained, but I guess, like, if there is a thing, it's like, well, if they go down together, I guess, and you kind of get a clean slate next year and what could be a pretty good quarterback class, which is definitely helpful. But yeah, my biggest fear is not being bad enough to get a top pick, but not being good enough to do anything that matters. That's my biggest worry.
Yeah, I mean, I was there about a month ago, man. I thought we were going to sit here and try to run it back with Baalke and Robert Saleh, and I was supposed to believe in that. But luckily, Shad Khan saw what was going on and luckily made the decision, and now it's actually some optimism. I mean, obviously nothing's happened. I mean, Liam Cohen hasn't coached a game, but it's just something different, right? It's something they can be positive about, and you're not going to have a GM that's going to overdraft players based off of intangibles. Because, I mean, they literally drafted defensive lineman Mason Smith in the second round, a whole round ahead of his projected draft spot, because they said he had similar measurables as Chris Jones. It's like, he's not. There's only one Chris Jones. Don't get a player that looks like him. Just get the best player, right? So he was the ultimate traits guy. Ruben, going back to the Super Bowl, let me know your thoughts of the game.
I mean, it was a horrible game. It was a horrible score bug. The halftime, performance was horrible by Kendrick Lamar. The national anthem, dear God, I don't know what that young man was doing, but it was horrible also. The only thing that went great on Sunday was that every time I looked down in my left hand, there was an ice-cold Michelob Ultra with the top peeled off. Other than that, man, Houston's own Jalen Hurts, he solidifies himself as a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. The Eagles probably got 2 of the best young defensive tackles in the NFL, Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. Nick Sirianni, I mean, this dude just looks fantastic, every day, that goes on. It's insane that Philadelphia fans hate him. But you know what, boys? When I saw the city of Philadelphia celebrating, when I saw everyone in unison singing the Meek Mill song, Dreams and Nightmares, I just kept on saying that needs to be me. And I don't know if you guys have a song, for like your city, but one of the songs here is "Wanna Be a Baller" by Little Troy. And when the Houston Texans win a Super Bowl, boys, that song is going to be everywhere in the city. Other than that, man, just a blowout, like you said. Kansas City, they don't three-peat. Brady looks good. Belichick looks good. Just a very underwhelming Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you, man. I've been saying all along, I only need one Super Bowl championship in my life. I just need one,
man.
I need to know what if it'd be nice to have one, and then just have a good team every year, right? Like, let me be the Ravens. Ravens haven't won a Super Bowl in forever, but they're always in it. They have fun regular seasons. It's they can go into a place and dominate, and Jaguars have one good year, then they're back to sucking, right? There's no sustainability to any kind of success that we ever accidentally trip and fall into. So, yeah, that's it's definitely a dream to potentially be one of those teams. Shout out to Truett Trussler, $1.49 super chat. Really, really oddly specific amount, but we appreciate that very much. So, yeah, I guess my thoughts on a Super Bowl. I'll be honest. I think that my idea on who I want the Jaguars to draft kind of changed in that Super Bowl. Because I've been someone that kind of been wanting Will Johnson, the quarterback from Michigan, at number 5 overall. But then all of a sudden I saw the Eagles defensive line just completely dominate. And what have the Eagles been doing? They've been drafting defensive linemen high. They've been paying defensive linemen. And that basically made it to where they were able to get all this pressure without even blitzing anybody. I mean, getting pressure with 4 guys, I do not remember what that is like. So if you can just build an extremely nasty defensive line, I think it all starts in the trenches. And I think that's one thing where the Jaguars have been going away from the last couple of years, is that they haven't been investing in the offensive line. And I mean, I guess they've been investing in a defensive line a little bit, but I don't think they're necessarily hitting on their players. But just be a team where the trenches, both the offensive line and defensive line, can just smack you in the mouth, right? And that's what I want for my team. And like seeing what the Eagles defensive line was doing to Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes had no chance. It was like 3-step drop, something in his face. He was running around. I mean, the Eagles completely dominated just because of their defensive line. And, they got a pick 6. They got a couple interceptions that, led them into really good field position. So, yeah, get me a nasty defensive line, and I'd be all about that action. So we'll just have to see. Paul with a $5 super chat said petition to change Cody's channel from Bring the Juice to Bring the Mediocrity. I'm only referring to the Colts. Derek didn't like it. What do you think about that, Cody?
Okay. Yeah. I don't really know how to respond to that, to be honest with you guys. I mean, it's true the Colts are stuck in mediocrity, but hey, I'm holding out for the day, boys, that I can root for them again to actually do something. It's been a long time. It's been almost a decade now. But I'm holding out hope. And I know there's been a lot of franchises that have definitely suffered a lot worse than Colts fans. Just this last decade, it's been rough for us. But hey, you know what? Maybe the 2020s, the second half of the 2020s will be better for us. I don't know.
Cody, were you able to hear Andrew Luck on Barstool the other day?
I actually was not able to catch that. I knew he was on there. I hadn't got around to it.
Okay.
But dude, anytime I see any of that, I almost avoid it now because I'm just like, I don't want to relive it, man. Like, I'm glad he's doing well. I just can't, dude. Like, the trauma's still there. I don't think it's ever going to go away,
What was some of the stuff that happened on the podcast?
One of the things that went viral was him doing his snap count and how he liked a certain snap count that involved 3 huts and that's what he would use. And he got into it, and it got real loud, and all the comments were from Indy fans saying, man, what I would do to get Andrew Luck back, what I would do to go back in time and fix the offensive line. I think we all know where we were when Andrew Luck retired. Like, just an insane day. Insane.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, it didn't feel real when he retired. It was like, oh, he's just talking about it. He'll be back, but it was official. It was official, and I don't know if he just. I know didn't his wife kind of lead to him retiring? Like, she wasn't really about all the time that was being put into the game of football.
I hadn't heard that, actually. I assumed it was more of his mental state where he was at. I can't say I blame him. I mean, honestly, you think about all the lack of offensive line that he had in his time with the Colts and all the hits he took. Man, it added up, and it sucks because the one season they got an O-line, he actually probably played his best season. But at that point, I think he was just, his will to play was gone, man. And it just really sucks. Like, very unfortunate. But it just sucks, man. I can't even say it. And since then, I mean, what have we done? Kick the can down the road, and then the one time we get a chance to fix it, we take a project. Like, I don't even know what to say. I wanted to hold out hope for Anthony Richardson, and I do think he still can become that guy, but also, honestly, for me, the biggest concern isn't even the accuracy. It's the health for Anthony Richardson, because, if he's raw, okay, give him some time. He's going to go work with Chris Hess, I believe his name is, who has worked with Josh Allen and all that stuff. So again, there's multiple concerns here for me with Anthony Richardson. And I'm kind of nervous about that because, the best ability is availability. And frankly, Anthony Richardson has not been available. And that's what sucks about it, because the kid's got all the talent in the world. He can throw, I would wager he could make any pass, but unfortunately he can't make the layups, which is a big issue. But the biggest thing for me is he can't stay healthy. And at that point, you can only give him so much benefit of the doubt until you got to just make a choice here and move on. And I think this is the year, going back to what we talked about earlier, guys. Like, I think this is the year for him to either prove it or not. And so that's why I would be okay if the Colts were to bring in, some legitimate competition to push him. Like, I would be good with that, because I think you need to see what you got, if he's the guy or not, and go forward from there. And if he turns out to not be, like, I think pretty much all Colts fans outside of a few are kind of off of the Anthony Richardson hype train.
Are they really?
There's a lot that
should have never been on that thing, to begin with.
I know.
Come on, Cody.
I'll be honest. For me, I think my biggest concern with Anthony Richardson isn't even the health; it's the maturity. Like,
as soon as I saw that rap video, I knew it was raps.
One thing that I can't get over, and obviously everybody is going to talk about him taking himself out, but I think the biggest thing is, I think in that same game he went down like fake an injury, and then he got back up like, just joking. Like, you don't see players doing that, especially like Anthony Richardson hasn't earned the right to psych out anybody by doing that. I think that's my biggest concern with him right now, is just maturity.
Oh yeah. And I'm not saying he's where he needs to be, but I guess I'm hopeful that benching did something. I mean, I know it was only a small sample size, but I'm hopeful that was the message that needed to be sent to him. And I'm hopeful that he took that to heart. But I'll go on record here, guys, saying this. When your team drafts a quarterback, you want to believe in him, right? Everybody wants to do that. You hype him up. You do all this stuff. But I'll be honest, guys, C.J. Stroud was my guy. I mean, he was my guy from day one. So to see him go to Houston was just horrible. It was terrible, man. You get him, unfortunately, for a while. But, yeah, I don't know. We're in a weird spot with the quarterback position. So, hopeful if it doesn't work out this year, which I have lost a lot of faith that it will, I'm hopeful we get a whole new start next year. And then we can start some optimism, because it feels like this team, guys, I've said this before and I'll say it again. This team doesn't know what they want to be. Like, on one hand, you have these, this rookie, this young quarterback that's developmental. There's certain parts of your roster that are very developmental. And then you have guys like DeForest Buckner, who, is past 30 years old, who's ready to win now. It's probably the dumbest and most odd way that I've seen a team build a roster. And it's just very strange to me. And I just have never understood it. I never will. And I think that's part of the reason why Chris Ballard, he doesn't know what he wants to build. And that's why he's failed as much as he has and has a losing record through 9 seasons now, 8 seasons.
Yeah.
It's because of that.
And that's one thing that I've been kind of saying about the Colts is like, yeah, they have some like good players and everything, but it almost feels like the roster is getting stale when it comes to like the best players, right? Like, DeForest Buckner's been on there forever. Like you've had Quentin Nelson on there forever. Jonathan Taylor too. It's like they desperately need someone to come in there and shake things up. And maybe that comes in a form of a rebuild, but I mean something, because obviously some of the products right now aren't getting you over the finish line. So yeah, it just feels like something like that needs to go on.
Yeah. And you know what? The thing that infuriates me the most is the Colts GM might be the most egotistical person I've ever seen in my life. To think that this roster was good enough to compete this year, just laughable. The only addition you had was a backup defensive tackle and a 4-year-old quarterback, and you're like, we're good. We'll rely on the rookies. It's just ridiculous. So, I'll say this, Rossi, even though the stuff, not all the free agent swings for the Titans worked out, I will say I would rather have a GM like that actually gives a crap about improving the roster than one that just sits there and does nothing. So that's what I would say. And that's why I think Chris Ballard is so overrated. And I think he is a terrible GM. And I think he needs to be gone. And frankly, it's wild to me that he's still here. Don't get me going. I could go on. I could rant.
You can. So I guess we'll leave with the Colts. Paul says, I'll leave Colts fan with this. This is our team. This is our town. We bleed blue. Sums up being a Colts fan for me. And Derek actually sings this song every single week on the show. Are you going to do it for us, Cody?
I hate it. I won't be honest with you. I hate it.
It doesn't hype you up?
No. It actually is an accurate representation of who we are at this point. So it is embrace it. I don't even try to comment on it because I know the guy who does it's a great guy. But I can't.
End of the year.
I just can't. Yeah.
End of the year.
He's Colts fan of the year. I don't know if he won.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, dear God, I got to make a song.
He went to the Super Bowl, but that was pretty cool. But yeah, no, I'm not gonna do that. I don't know why Derek does it. Honestly, he should be embarrassed if he's watching right now.
He's
Derek,
so good at it,
man. And he sings it
really
very well.
Oh boy,
mm-hmm.
I'm so sorry for you guys.
Want to give a shout out to this video sponsor, BetUS. So you guys may wonder, hey, what kind of football bets can we actually make? There's some picks here. I think the most interesting one is we'll see where the NFL specials are when it comes to players' next stop, and we can also take a look at the NFL draft. So let's go through this and actually see where BetUS feels these guys will go. So Aaron Rodgers' team in week 1, of course, the Jets said they're going to move on from him. So if we look at it right now, the highest odds look to be the San Francisco 49ers at plus 300, Saints at plus 500, and then the Browns at plus 800. And also the Raiders at plus 600. So that's definitely pretty interesting right there. Cooper Kupp, the highest odds of him going to the Chargers, and then the Bills, and then the Steelers. So I think I don't know if they're going to look to trade him, but I think they're either going to trade or cut, right? Deebo Samuel, the favorite is to go to the Commanders, then Chargers, then Panthers. Let's see some other guys. Who will the Eagles play week 1? Okay, that's a weird one.
Oh,
okay, Myles Garrett, next team, if not the Browns. So Dallas Cowboys at plus 300. I think he grew up a Cowboys fan, so that would make sense. Commanders at plus.
No, it's not the Titans.
Did he say something about the Titans? Did he talk shit about the Titans, or was that a fake graphic?
Everyone does, man.
No, one of my buddies who's a Titans content creator, shout out to Mr. Titan, met him in the airport. He works at the Houston airport, and he got a quote from Garrett, and it was awesome. I can't remember exactly what it says. I have to look it up, but Garrett would basically laughed it off. He's like, why would I go there? I would just stay here in Cleveland. It's like, no. Yeah, it got retweeted on Dov Kleiman's page and everything.
That's pretty funny. So that's Myles Garrett. I'm trying to see some AFC South teams in here. So Matthew Stafford, next team, stay with the Rams at minus 200. Then Raiders, Steelers, Vikings. We have The Raiders' next quarterback, Sam Darnold, is the favorite at plus 200. Then Stafford at plus 300. Justin Fields at plus 400. Sam Darnold, week 1, he's favored to go to the Raiders and Steelers and Giants. So yeah, a bunch of interesting picks here. Then here's the NFL draft. First overall pick. The overwhelming favorite right now is Cam Ward at minus 110. Rossi, is this where you're kind of leaning on?
I wouldn't be upset with Cam Ward, but like I'm just not sold on Ward or Sanders being like number 1. You know what I mean? Like if we traded back and somehow like ended up with Sanders at like number 9 or so, I don't know, man. Like I'm just not big on those guys being like number 1, like maybe number 8 through 10, something like that. But I just worry about Cam Ward in the pros. I mean, to be honest, but the dude is super talented. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm just not extremely sold on those 2 guys, like those 2 quarterbacks.
Interesting. So we'll just have to see if you guys are interested on putting any money down on these guys, on these different props. Definitely hit up BetUS. They're a sponsor of this channel, and they're gonna give you a 150% deposit bonus if you use promo code YouTube150. So will be definitely fascinating. Of course, the Titans had the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Jaguars had the number 5 overall pick. So we just kind of had to sit there and see who falls to us. We're hoping that a couple quarterbacks go ahead, so it pushes some of the non-quarterbacks back a little bit. But it'll be fascinating to see how this thing moves, because now, like, I mean, Abdul Carter right now, the defensive end from Penn State, is actually higher odds to go number 1 than Travis Hunter. So it's definitely fascinating. And of course, you see these things shake up after big NFL events, like after the combine. Once people start talking, then this board will shake up a bunch, and it'll be fascinating. And look, we're only 2.5 months away from the NFL draft. Like, it's really, really exciting times out here. So
blink and we'll be right there, boys.
Exactly. And we're going to keep making content all the way up until that time, as our teams try to get to a Super Bowl, right? It's the dream, isn't it?
Yeah.
So with that said, I guess we can go into like where you guys feel like your team is going to do in free agency. So we haven't talked too much about the Titans. I know the Titans actually surprised me last year and spent some money in free agency, made a trade for a cornerback from the Chiefs, Snead. Now that you guys kind of had a bad year last year, had number 1 overall pick, what's your plan this offseason with your new GM, you think?
They're talking about, the GM's talking about, like, we're going to do this the right way. We're going to build it through the draft and all this and that. And last season, they didn't really do it that way. But, like, they had so many holes, and they have so many holes again. Like, Snead barely played. Awuzie, the guy from Cincinnati, barely played. Like, and it just really disheartening. Like you brought it up, Cody. Like, yeah, they were active. They got Titans fans excited, and it was kind of shocking to see how active they were. They went out and got Ridley. And Ridley, I mean, there were times where I got super like irritated with Calvin Ridley. Like there were just times where like he'd run out of bounds instead of turning upfield, and when he needed to, or he would miss a catch. But ultimately the guy had over 1,000 yards, and
Dude, he did the same thing with the Jaguars. It was like, it felt like the most fraudulent 1,000-yard season when you look back on it, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it was weird. Like there's moments where you're like, man, this guy, considering the situation at quarterback and the offensive line with the Titans, like there were plays that he made that were like mind blowing. And then there were plays that were so incredibly frustrating. And it's like, I like Ridley. Like I like him as like a number 2 guy. You know what I mean? So I don't know. The Titans have a ton of holes. They got a ton of work to do. And I just don't, honestly, like, I don't want to see them this year being like they were last offseason and just like going out and blowing all this money for guys who were questionable. I mean, Snead's knee was questionable, like to begin with. You know what I'm saying? And they didn't give up a ton for Snead. Like it was a decent trade, but
it was a day 2 pick, right? That's a decent amount.
It was. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was. But I think the Titans need to seriously looking at trading back. Like, I really do. Like, because look, you look at next season, dude, the quarterback class is going to be stacked. Like, the season after next season is going to be stacked in the draft. Like, if you, I don't know, man. Like, I really like Abdul Carter. I really like Travis Hunter. Like, those guys to me are worthy of like a number one. You say the word generational talent and all that type of stuff. Like, Hunter and Carter are those type of players. Like, I just don't see that generational thing. Like, if you're going to pick number one, like, you need to pick somebody that is a complete game changer. And I see Carter and Hunter as those two guys. I don't see Cam Ward as that. Like, and can the Titans spend 2 to 3 more years trying to groom a quarterback? I don't know. Like, I mean, you only have Darnold, you only have like Rodgers and all these guys that are kind of Rodgers is so old, dude. Like, he's so slow. Like when he was with the Jets, like, but you look at his stats, he had 28 touchdowns. That's a lot better than freaking Will Levis was. So, like, I don't know, dude. I think the Titans really need to like build this thing the right way because their new stadium's not going to be ready this year. It's going to be ready in 2027. So, like, I think you want to go into that new stadium, like, kind of building it a little bit, like, and building it the right way instead of just blowing all this money. And they have a lot of money this offseason. So, I really think I like Borgonzi. Like, he's got the Chiefs pedigree. I think he can do it the right way. Obviously, he's helped build a really good franchise in Kansas City. So I'm looking for them to be a little slower this offseason and make, frankly, better decisions.
Yeah, we'll just have to see. Yeah, like they shocked me last year spending a bunch of money, but
Yeah.
we'll see what they do because it feels like there's going to be a little bit of a rebuild going on here. Shout out to Eric. I think he's the only member of the channel. He says like, subscribe, and join the membership. Duval till we die. Yo, we appreciate you, Eric. Look, like I said, this channel is going to be active this offseason. We're going to keep on with the content, keep on with the videos, and just keep growing this channel and, be the best AFC South channel out there. I mean, we already are, but really the sky's the limit here. And, really hopefully all of our teams can play some fun competitive football and we can, year one, we had 3 teams with winning records, right? Didn't go as well last year, but yeah, we had it was a good time. So we'll move on to, how about you, Ruben? Like, what do you feel like the Texans will wind up doing in free agency? And like Stephon Diggs, is he going to be there to stay? I know you guys traded a day 2 pick for him. Are you guys expected to re-sign him?
It's kind of a touchy subject right now. I'm more leaning towards only bring back Stephon Diggs if the money makes sense. Do not forget, we've voided the final 3 years of his contract. So we have about 16 million dead cap of his this season. So add that to whatever contract you give him. Or do you really want to invest almost $30+ million into a 30-year-old Stephon Diggs coming off of a torn ACL? I don't know, but you see his connection with CJ Stroud, his relationship around the team, and believe it or not, Stephon Diggs was a locker room guy for the Houston Texans. And I go back to when he was in training camp working out with the receivers who didn't even make the 53-man roster. So I'm on the fence, but if the wind blows, I want it to blow where the Texans don't go for a Stephon Diggs. They go a younger route. Tutu Atwell is a free agent. He is from the Los Angeles Rams. The Texans hired the Los Angeles Rams pass game coordinator and tight end coach Nick Caley to be their new play caller. So Tutu Atwell, I think, could fit this system, like a glove. You have to do something about the offensive line. You have to heavily invest into the offensive line. Man, CJ Stroud was the second most sacked quarterback in the NFL. And I've seen Deshaun Watson behind a horrible offensive line. I've seen David Carr behind a horrible offensive line. I do not want to see CJ Stroud. I've seen Andrew Luck behind a horrible offensive line. I do not want to see that happen to CJ Stroud. And, we saw it affect him this year. Whenever he threw his helmet down against Green Bay, signs were right there that there was a problem in Houston. So I think you need to address, the offensive line in the draft and for agency. I don't think the defense needs to get touched. Everyone's pretty much under contract. The offense, I think, needs to be heavily invested.
So yeah, that'll be fascinating. You already know they're going to be probably investing everything they can into the offensive line because man, that held them back in a huge way.
Oh my God.
Cody, we'll move on to the Colts. I mean, look, Ballard's on he's hanging on by a thread, right? What's he going to do this free agency? Is he going to reach back into the bargain bid at Goodwill, or is he going to do some more high class shopping and actually try to bring in some of the higher class free agents? Like, what's I guess the Colts fans' sense of what they're going to do this offseason?
So I'll say this. Chris Ballard said everything he needed to say at the end of the year press conference about his approach, how he's built the roster, how it was a mistake. These are what he said. That it was a mistake to bring back all your own guys and expect this team to take that jump. He owned that. So far, the things that he's done with allowing Shane Steichen to go out and find his guy at defensive coordinator, he's allowed him to do that, which I think is definitely a good thing and a positive step in that direction. But when it comes to free agency, I do believe that we will see him do a little bit more. Now, I'm not going to say, because it is Chris Ballard at the end of the day, I'm not going to say he's going to go out and pull a 2023 Titans. Sorry, I keep referencing that, Rossi, but he's not going to do that. I don't believe he's going to go out and, trade for all these guys and sign all these guys to massive deals. But what I do think is you could see a couple moves that the Colts have made in the past under Chris Ballard. They, it feels like almost every other year for the past 4 years, the Colts have gone back and forth between, we're kind of running it back. And then the next year, you would think he'd learn from his mistakes by now. But again, here we are. But it seems like every year, every offseason, after they don't do a whole lot, they usually bring in a couple guys that they pay. I'm not saying a lot of money to, but they pay a substantial, noticeable amount to. So when it comes to the Colts, again, I think a lot of Colts fans are like, he's said all the right things, but I'll believe it when I see it with him. That being said, if I'm thinking about what the Colts are going to do, one thing they did really focus on in their defensive coordinator search is a big emphasis on the defensive coordinator, a big emphasis on the secondary with all their defensive coordinators. I mean, pretty much every single guy outside of maybe Wink Martindale had some sort of background working with defensive backs. And they brought in Chris Hewitt, who worked with the Baltimore Ravens for a long time. They brought him in as their new defensive backs coach. So that leads me to believe they're going to put a big emphasis on improving that secondary. They have a couple players that you can build upon. They obviously still have Kenny Moore in there, who's been probably one of, if not the best slot corners in all of football. They have a couple young guys, second and third year guys that I think took a step up and now going into years 3 and 4 respectively, I think will be solid pieces. But I think the one thing that they lack is some proven talent in there outside of that. They really, I think, need a true number one corner. As much as I like Jalen Jones, I think he'd be much better suited as a number 2. So I think they need to go out there and address that. And I think the biggest need in this secondary is a rangy ball hawking safety, free safety. They don't have that right now. They had Julian Blackmon, who they brought back on a 1-year deal, but he's either injured or not playing at a high level or a combination of both. So I do think that the Colts, even if they did bring back Julian Blackmon, say on a prove-it deal, I do think they still need to really very much invest when it comes to the free safety position. And I think that would be the number one need for me on defense. When it comes to linebacker, EJ Speed is a free agent. I do not want the Colts to re-sign him because he was one of the worst linebackers in the NFL last year, routinely missing tackles, lack of effort.
Breaking up the podcast?
Yes, please. I don't think they're going to do it very much anymore, even if he did stay. But I do believe that they need to move on from him. They need to get younger at that position. If there's one thing that they have done very well under Chris Ballard, it's finding linebackers. Traditionally, they have done a pretty good job from Darius Leonard back in 2018. Zaire Franklin was a 7th-round pick. They had Bobby Okereke for a number of years, and these aren't guys that, Bobby Okereke and Darius Leonard are guys that were day 2 picks. But other than that, there's been a lot of day 3 guys that the Colts have gotten and have played some pretty significant snaps and actually have been pretty good outside of this last year for them. So I do think that I could see them addressing that either way, free agency or the draft. And then when talking about just the offense, I honestly believe outside of quarterback, which we've talked about, and I don't really think you can do a whole lot to drastically improve it this offseason, but I do think the number one focus has to be on tight end for the Indianapolis Colts. And fortunate for the Colts, this is a very strong tight end class from what everybody has said. Tyler Warren is the pick, but I don't know, honestly, guys, if he's going to be there at pick 14. So the Indianapolis Colts may have to trade up or, potentially get, another one of these tight ends in this class. I would like to see them. I think that's the number one priority on offense. And I think kind of the number two would be another running back to pair alongside Jonathan Taylor. It's a very deep class as well when it comes to that. So I would say as far as that goes, those are some of the needs for the Colts, but directly in free agency, I would definitely say focus has to be primarily on the defense.
Interesting. So one last one from Paul here. Shout out to Paul, man. $20 of donations today. Really appreciate you, man. He says, Cody, how do the Colts have this crappy roster, but only ranked 17th in cap space? Ballard isn't even giving us bargains anymore.
Yeah, I think it's going back to Colts draft a lot of their own guys and they retain a lot of their own guys. And I would say there's a couple things the Colts can do. I think the number one thing would be releasing Braden Smith, the right tackle. He's set to make, if you cut him, you'd save about $17 million right there. So that would free up a lot of money. There's a few other contracts that you could potentially, restructure or move off of a couple different guys that are getting paid. So I do think there are ways that the Indianapolis Colts could save some cap space this offseason. I mean, cap space is so flexible. You see NFL teams, manipulating that all the time. So I guess for me, it's like I'm not that concerned. And if the Colts make a couple of these moves to help with that situation, I do think they could still make a couple notable signings.
Interesting. So I know when it comes to the Jaguars, the Jaguars this offseason, they're in an interesting position. I think they have the 17th most cap space available. So they definitely have some room to be able to spend some money. And I think a lot of it's going to really be investing in the trenches. And that's been a big thing that's being talked about. I mean, Tony Baselli, the first pick in our franchise's history, also our only Hall of Famer, is a left tackle, and he's been talking about build the trenches. New head coach Liam Cohen, build the trenches. So it feels like the Jaguars, if they're going to get any one big free agent, they're going to spend some money on the interior of the offensive line. So I'm really looking at the guard from the Kansas City Chiefs. I think Trey Smith is his name.
Smith.
Yeah, I think that'll be a guy, and they'll probably have to go out to the Texans for him, man, because they need somebody that can plug and play start week one. And then they also probably got to draft somebody too. I think on day 2, they try to find a guy, because I think Mitch Morse will be fine to start for a year, but they have to invest in the future. And the Jaguars literally haven't drafted a building block interior offensive lineman since 2014 and Brandon Linder. So they have to get that better. And just continue to invest in the defensive line. I'm not sure exactly how much they'll spend in free agency. Luckily, they have a lot of picks in the draft. They have 10 picks, the most of any team. And actually, one really cool thing last year, when they moved back from 17 to number 23, the Vikings, to get Brian Thomas Jr., they inherited the Vikings' 3rd round pick and a 4th round pick. So that's huge draft capital for us. I mean, by far the best thing that Balky has done, be able to move back 6 spots and maybe get the best wide receiver in the draft. So that one's really exciting, and we'll just have to see. So we'll end the show with this. Look, Houston Texans news: Bobby Slowick got hired to the Miami Dolphins as their senior passing game coordinator. Ruben, when can we expect the thank you Bobby Slowick video? Good luck in your next stop.
Probably won't ever happen. But Bobby Slowick, good luck to your future endeavors. It didn't work out here. You're in Miami. Please do what you did not do in Houston, and that was get a haircut every single week. Bobby Slowick, you look absolutely terrible without a fade. I look terrible myself without one. We got to get you a weekly barber, buddy.
Hey man, or you can just grow it out like me, man. It's free. It's free. You don't got to get any haircuts.
I got Samsoned, brother, when I had my mullet growing a couple years ago.
Gotcha. Okay, so we won't expect that from you. But with all that said, we appreciate everybody for joining us here this week on the AFC South Roundtable. Appreciate Cody for filling in, talking about the Colts for us, and we're all about the Chris Ballard slander. Hey, I was slandering Chris Ballard last offseason, and Colts fans were killing me. I was like, this guy is the only guy. He's been in the AFC South since 2017, and he's the only GM to not win the AFC South in that time span. So I don't know. Now it's a popular thing to hate him, but it's all good.
Man,
all good.
You guys must love him. Well, you especially, Dalton, because we haven't won in Jacksonville since I've been in high school. So it's been that long, man.
That's like the only good thing the Jaguars have going for it. It's like the only thing we have. Like every year we might suck. We might go 3-14, but at least just beat the Colts at home. That's all we have to hold on to, man.
Yeah.
But yeah. With that said, appreciate everyone for joining here. We want to give a big shout out to BetUS for sponsoring all these streams and making this possible. Please, guys, on your way out, drop a like for us. We're going to have another video out for you later this week, probably either Thursday or Friday. So appreciate you guys for sticking around with us in the off season. We're going to continue to pump out these videos and streams. So make sure you guys stay tuned and hit the notification bell on this channel. And also a huge shout out to BetUS for making these streams possible. 150% deposit bonus using promo code YouTube150. Thanks, everybody, and catch you guys later.